There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first presentation of season 4 of NFLT's Working Lunch Wednesday series. I am Abby Carden, the membership coordinator at NFLT, and we are so excited to have you with us today. A few things before we begin. Your microphones are muted to eliminate background noise. We will, though, take questions throughout. So feel free to unmute yourselves when you do have a question, or you can type it into the chat and we will monitor those throughout. And of course, we are recording, and this session will be distributed on our YouTube channel to our other members who are unable to join us today. It's my pleasure now to introduce Vaughn Cochran. Vaughn is a saltwater fly fisherman, passionate conservationist, and contemporary sporting artist for the past 20 plus years. No stranger to Florida, Vaughn grew up in St. Augustine, graduated with degrees in ceramics and painting from the University of South Florida, and spent many years in Key West performing alongside Jimmy Buffett as an original member of his Coral Reefer Band. Vaughn's career as a fly fishing guide led him to explore and paint places such as Mexico, Costa Rica, Belize, and the Bahamas. His award-winning artwork has been displayed in many galleries and art shows, as well as private and corporate collections. Recently, Vaughn was selected as a signature member of the American Society of Marine Artists. And I would be remiss not to mention that Vaughn and NFLT President and CEO Allison DeFore go way back, and it is their longstanding friendship that ultimately led to this special presentation today. So Vaughn, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited about your presentation, and I know these folks are too. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to come and visit my world. I will have to say, Allison and I still joke about our relationship. That he was at one point, I think, the sheriff of Monroe County, and I was a resident, and we laugh about the fact that we all knew the same people, but from opposite sides of the law. So, but I think it's kind of a fun relationship for us to get back together and talk about everything. So, and I'm honored to be part of the NFLT program. I really appreciate it. So, the the artwork that I've selected today, I guess the whole thing was, how does art tell the story um, about conservation and ecology. And as I started working on this, I mean, I didn't realize how many things I did that were totally related to that, because I do so many different things. And I had a conversation with one of my artist friends one time, and he has a very distinct style, and he does the same thing over and over. And we were each jealous of each other, because I was saying, well, I'd really kind of like to have what you do, so everybody instantly recognized what I did. And he was going, no, no. He said, I want to do what you do, where you can do anything you want to, and it doesn't matter. People accept it. So it was kind of a funny way of talking about our art, and how your art relates to the public, and how sometimes you get stuck in a style and everything. And if as you go along and you see this, you'll realize that I'm far from being stuck in a particular style. So, and I have a restaurant called Black Fly in St. Augustine, and I have all the artwork. People say, well, do you have a gallery? I said, yeah, it's got a restaurant in the middle of it. And well, they say, well, how many different people are in here? And they said, no, it's just one schizophrenic person, which was me. So as you're looking through everything, you'll see kind of I'm all over the place. And I do work in series. Excuse me. I do work in series sometimes of 6, just because it's the way the restaurant is set up. It's just I can show those 6 pieces all at the same time. And there's a couple of pieces behind me that we can talk about that are an example of that. So, but anyway, let's go to the first slide, please, Abby. And this is, the landscapes. it creates a public desire for people to preserve the wild spaces. If you'll go to the slide, uh, and usually these partnerships are with artists, and the artists will take this visual information and use this. It's really kind of a translation tool, and it brings data and stuff into it's like a picture uh, is worth words. And so this helps the public understand what's actually out there. This painting is called Marker 38. It's an oil painting. It's 30 by 40, if I remember correctly. But you're these are places that all the fishermen know it, but the general public has no idea that this is what it looks like out there. And this is a low tide picture. Normally, you'll have a little bit of the oyster shells, but this is a kind of a mud bank in front and an oyster shell, and which is it supports so much wildlife, and it's people just have no idea that it's there. The next piece is called Clapboard Creek. Uh, this is one of my friends fishing in that little tiny boat. But this is north of Jacksonville. And it's an area you can look it up. It's Clapboard Creek. Another low tide thing. And I picked these images because at high tide it's just nothing but water. But at low tide you can see the topography and where the crabs live and all that sort of stuff. Uh, an interesting thing I learned a long time ago about fishing, and if you're looking for things to paint, maybe you want to paint an image with birds in it. Is that at low tide, the birds are always feeding on these sand flats, and they're looking for crabs and all sorts of things. Well, at low tide, at high tide, if you go back to that same place where the birds were feeding, that's generally where you're going to find the fish because they're eating the same things and feeding off the same bottom. So it was kind of an interesting thing I learned a long time ago. If you're in a new place, just go to where the birds are. So it seems pretty good. So, but this just shows you. I mean, the marsh is pretty. I don't know. It's not very inspirational sometimes, but it's incredibly important to have the public understand not only what's out there, but this is an area that needs to be preserved. And if you're trying to solicit uh, grants and land from donations and that sort of thing, this is a really important part of the story here, I believe. Uh, in the next piece, it's called Incoming Marsh Harbor. This is, I also own, well, along with a couple of partners, a fishing lodge in the Bahamas. It's called Blackfly Lodge, of course. And this is one of the areas where we fish. And this, again, another low tide spot. And these are the mangroves. And this is a story about the flat system and the mangroves, and now there's mangroves encroaching into North Florida, which is really important. So this just is part of the food chain, and it's so much easier to understand a picture like this when you're trying to explain all those little mounds and things are all about the crabs and how much that area is about erosion control and what the trees do and the mangroves do and all that sort of stuff. And there's another slide here about the turtle grass, which is the same thing. Um, so now we're here at Arctic Conservation, and this is where you can visualize the data and get people to understand and have a feeling for the territory. And the practical part about it is it will possibly enhance their fundraising efforts when they know what's there. So the next image is called Bonefish Tide. Uh, I work a lot from photographs, and this was an area west of Key West, early morning, which you usually is the best time to fish for bonefish and things like that. And I, you can't see it because of the close up, but there's a little school of bonefish right in the kind of in the center in that bright spot right ahead of that little sandbank. And This is another example of the land that's there, and this really connects with people because it can. I don't know if you can envision yourself being there, but it's a this is a early morning, no wind. The light is incredible, and it was kind of orange and glowy yellow like this. So uh, I just couldn't resist. I took a lot of pictures when I was guiding, so I still have some that I haven't painted yet that I probably need to get around to. So on the next slide, that's called Ray Over Grass. And this goes back to the turtle grass thing and the eagle rays, and they hunt over these types of bottoms. For me, the artistic part of this was, to show, what do they say? Don't mix stripes and circles or whatever in fashion. So I did, and I started to sign my name with these little on the edge of the ray where all those circles are. And but anyway, I didn't do that. I thought that was too funky. But so these kinds of things. This image is so different that this is something that might inspire policy discussions because it's so unusual, it's so different. Uh, and you can talk about land and habitat preservation because that's what this is all about. So there's a lot of different things that will apply to a painting like this and can be used to inspire conversations. The next slide.
Vaughn, real quick, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Where do you remember where this one was? And I'm sorry if you said that and I missed it.
Well, the actually it's two things that I put together. The actual photograph was taken in Belize,
Mm,
and I was lucky enough to be on the front of the boat instead of the back of the boat, where I was for years as a fishing guide.
mm,
And the water was so crystal clear, and I took a photograph of the grass because I was mesmerized by it, and there was just enough current to where the grass was kind of laying down. And then I found a picture of a spotted eagle ray
mhm.
that I used, and I just drew it in over the top of that, and so put the two together. So it's
Beautiful.
a strange combination. A lot of people say, "Well, I can't look at that; it makes me crazy."
I like
So,
it.
so anyway, that's how that came to be. Uh, So I was talking earlier about the different styles and things that I do, and here's an example of that. This is a hog snapper. Uh, I in this whole bright series, it's something that I started years ago. The What I've done was I take the actual fish and draw the outline, and then I kind of make up the rest, the colors, and so the actual shape is correct. Just the colors are not. I've enhanced the colors a lot and everything, but this is something that you can use to send a unique message about acquiring land or talk about the habitat or these different kinds of fish. Talk about fishing regulations. So this is part of the whole job that art can be asked to do. Uh, so let's go to the next section. Am I going too
Vaughn,
fast?
no, I just have a question, Abby, if you could go back to the last slide. Vaughn, just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, the balance between art and fishing and the balance between, your artwork and fishing and the environment.
The, I was just talking earlier about my first memories of being a human being was fishing with my dad, and uh, and that's I've been so lucky. My dad was a great fisherman, so I kind of have been lucky enough to do both things my entire life, and figured out a way to make a living doing it. so so the fishing has always been a part of my life, and I've uh, managed to, as I've gone through life in college and the military, and then after that, moving to Key West, it just seems like these kinds of things just came to me. And I was fortunate enough to figure out how to take advantage of it. And so there's always been a relation between this. And even when in fact, I didn't really start out doing fish. I was living in Mexico at the time I had created a tour company there and on the island of Isla Mujeres. And these, I didn't realize it was a big fishing area in the spring. And so a lot of people come there to catch sailfish, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them there. And these guys asked me, this one guy who was a mate on one of the boats asked me if I could paint a sailfish. And of course I said yes, having never painted a sailfish in my life. So anyway, I did. I painted it, and I showed it to him, and his buddy said, "Oh, can you paint one for me?" And so I said, "Okay, maybe I'm onto something here." And it turned out that the people that came to the island there for fishing were some of the most wealthy people on the planet. They have, $4, $5, $6 million sport fish boats, and they all collect art. And I figured, okay, this is where I need to be. Uh, so I was able to take that, and then I did the other thing I did was in the Keys when I eventually got back to there. I donated to a lot of charity fishing tournaments, and so I had another opportunity to meet people that collected art. A lot of famous fishermen and people that golfers. And how many golfers are fishermen? I mean, there's a lot of them. So anyway, the two things has just always kind of come together for me, and I've been lucky enough to figure out a way to how to make a living doing it. So, well, art does amplify conservation, and it expands, the empathy for these situations and these scenarios, and so you're turning the information into momentum, hopefully, and this visual information. So, the first slide here is one called Free Swimmer. Uh, I don't know how many people have snorkeled in a situation like this to be underwater. I do have an underwater camera, and I also find images from friends of mine that are also photographers, and so this is one that I took. I think I was in Bimini for this. Uh, and I don't know, there's just so many things going on in there, and there was like not a lot of focus. I mean, obviously the fish is the focus, but there's also the tension on the water and all the grass and the shadows and how they all kind of blend in together, but yet you're still able to pick out the important parts of this. And again, it's just art is the tool here, and it just shows the beauty and the value of these protected places.
It looks like a photograph on.
I'll tell you these things. Uh, I don't use very big brushes when I'm in. The whole thing is the drawing, and once I get the basic stuff in there, I'm just kind of making up the rest. So I'll start out with kind of a cool background color, just a whole thing that's kind of light green, and then I can start adding to it. And so that's how that works. So you put in the basic medium colors, and then you put in the dark colors, and you put in the light colors, and you just kind of mess around with it until you get what you want. And fortunately, because I've been underwater enough and been on the water enough, that I kind of know what things should look like, and that experience gives me uh, what the information, the visual information I need to make this work. But thank you for the compliment. I work hard at it. So this next piece is a piece from the Keys. I remember this morning well. I took a whole bunch of pictures. I did two paintings out of this. It just shows something like this in the way that art would be used here would be for a brochure. It has lots of open space for text. Uh, it's and you could take this and make it a brochure very easy, where you had the front cover would be half of it, and you could split this in half and make a great cover. So you know annual reports, trail guides, posters. That's how something like that could be used. So how does art talk to you, and how to use it as a tool, I think. So the next piece is called net neutrality, and we've all heard that term before. Uh, Gene and I were up north. We were going to visit some friends in Newport, and we were waiting for a ferry. And I started wandering around on the docks, and I found this pile of nets. And I took a photograph of it. This is, and whenever I'm talking about this painting, nets are very destructive. And for a while in Florida, the net guys used to they just decimated the fish and the bait and everything, and it was a terrible situation. Finally, they passed a net ban. I forgot what year it was, but anyway, here I'm using this horrible machine and made something out of it. And so I just loved all the textures and the colors and all that sort of stuff. But here, you could use this to talk about nets and the damage that they do to the environment. Hey, donate to the ban the net fund or whatever. This is how something like that could be used. In terms of painting, once I started drawing on this, the stuff that's very obvious up in the front, there's a lot of background stuff here as well. So once I got the initial drawing done and I got the upfront work painted, then I started working on the background, and it hit me like, why in the world was I doing this? and, I committed myself to something that I wasn't sure how I was going to finish. But anyway, this is a great example of something in art that can be used to tell a story, whether positive or negative. But anyway, this painting is probably, I think it's 36 by 48. So it's a nice painting. It's actually hanging in the restaurant, the original is. So, and like I said, it goes back to the legislative initiative, where you can use something like that to change laws. So, fish here, this next painting is called Ocean Permit, and it's showing the natural habitat, how how really more than anything, these fish type things can be used for habitat conservation. And you have, there's terrestrial habitat and there's underwater habitat, uh, and it's still the same message. You're still trying to get the same point across. And it's important to talk about sustainability and the different regulations and things that are going on. The next piece is called tarpon daisy chain. This is one of those things that very few people have ever seen, unless you're a tarpon fisherman. And then this photograph, I worked from a photograph on this one as well. This happened in the Keys. I was fishing with one of my early clients, and this is a spawning type thing that tarpon do, and they swim around in a circle, and then they go offshore. I'm not sure exactly. There's, the Bonefish Tarpon Trust has very detailed information about this. But anyway, this is something nobody would ever see unless you're actually a tarpon fisher and you're out there trying to do it. So it's important to, yeah. I was talking about it. Gene was asking me a question here. So it's a mating thing, a spawning. So anyway, uh, these are things that affect the public that you don't see, and so this is a pretty rare event here for anybody else. Uh, the next piece is called turtle grass, and this is kind of, you can see where that other painting came from with the stingray, the spotted eagle ray over the top of it. Uh, this is one of those, another one of those paintings where, like, why did I start this? And somehow or another got it finished. I did when I painted this, I made it so that it could be used in a different way. That the right hand side of the painting actually matches the left hand side, and so that it could be made in a series, like down a wall in a corporate office or something like that. And you'll see that right in the middle of the painting, it's lighter. So when you put the pieces together, it kind of undulates. Like if you have 4 or 5 pieces, I did it for a business in Jacksonville, a corporate office, and they had it going down a wall about 30 feet long, and it was the first time I'd ever seen it all together, and I was impressed with my own stuff. So it was kind of fun to see it. But this is the point here is that you could use this for turtle grass restoration, and this in the Keys is a big deal. People running their boats over turtle grass, the prop scars and everything, because when you go across this and you make a ditch, uh, the turtle grass, when it roots, it goes sideways, it doesn't go deep. So once those scars are in the turtle grass, they're there forever. They just don't grow across a ditch like that. So it's very interesting. This is the nursery for every single bit of marine life, certainly in the Keys. And of course, here we have different kinds of grass, but it's the same thing. So, it's the basis for the entire food chain. So if you mess with that, you're messing with a big part of this. So it's a bigger deal than most people think. There's a lot of study going on about this and a lot of research going on, and they found a way to restore parts of this. And so that's an effort that's been going on for years and years in the Keys. So uh, the history of art is the history of the world, and art's always been a bridge between science and policy and the public. And as I've said already, since since 1916, when Woodrow Wilson created the National Park Service, uh, one of the first thing they did was create a logo and create all this artwork to try and get people to understand. And back then, there was very little known about the Park Service and the job and how important, these land acquisitions were. Uh, so they used, logos and brochures and everything to tell their story. Uh, at the time, cars were just had been invented not too long before that. Uh, and so they were trying to promote, you can go to the next slide, dude. Uh, they were trying to promote these park adventures, and to promote automobile traffic. And this slide here. Um, this was a boat that was abandoned in Key West, and some of the Park Service images and things that they use about what to do and what not to do. So this is again, something you could put in a brochure or um, a logo out of it, and it's again just telling the story. Uh, could you go to the next slide, please, Abby? Uh, the early paintings and things that were done in the park, a lot of photography because the camera was invented, in the early 1800s, and artists have been using the camera ever since. Uh, this was a friend of mine has this original painting, and an art collector came in his office and said, "God, that's a great painting. What is it?" And he just described it as it's a school of bonefish swimming, coming toward you. And he just liked the design. He had no idea that it was a bunch of fish, but they this is something again that could be used as a graphic in a brochure or something like that. It's one of my favorite pieces. I have this painting. This was, I think, probably the original is about 5 feet wide, and this is used a lot for other people, uh, borrow this or steal it for different projects. I see these things. Where'd you get that? Did you have my permission to use that? So, and that, a lot of things happen like that. When I was doing the film thing for the Jimmy Buffett project, one of the photographers, and they interviewed all these people that are wildlife people and everything. He told me the black fly design is one of the most stolen logos of anything he's ever seen. So I don't know what that is. Sorry about
So
that.
how did this morph into your Black Fly logo
Well,
on?
the I had studied when I was in college. I had studied sumi brush painting, the Japanese calligraphy, and and I was in my studio in Key West one day, and I started, I had a collection of these brushes, and and I started fiddling around with it, and I thought, well, what would happen if I painted a fly, a fishing fly, in that style? So, I mean, it's just black and white, so there's a lot of room for imagination. So I started painting, and one thing led to another, and it was basically at the end of the day, I had painted around 300 of these flies. A lot of them were very much alike, but uh, uh, so at the end of the day, I started looking around, and I picked out 10 of my favorite ones out of the group. Uh, and I started showing them to my friends and say, "Hey, what do you think about these? What's your favorite one?" And almost every single person picked the same fly. And it ended up being that's the fly that we used for the logo for the black fly. And it became the black fly because it was painted in black ink. So it was just like, oh, that's the black fly. So that is how the black fly came. And it started out as a t-shirt, and then it became a restaurant, and then it became a fishing lodge, and then it became a cafe, and it became an outfitter store. So I don't know where it's going to go from here, but it's always nice to recognize the different iterations this design has gone through to get to where it is. So
Thank
I
you. That's
lost
awesome.
I'm not seeing what you're seeing. So, Gene, I don't know what happened to that image. Sorry about that.
Can I hear you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you.
All right.
Hmm.
Well, you can switch to,
Can everyone else see it?
Yes, I think so.
okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the portrait.
right. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to that.
Okay.
Um, this is my friend Flip Pallett, who this year just passed away. Uh, Sometimes certain individuals, certainly the famous fly fishermen in the world, they can inspire emotions in people. Here's somebody that was known as Mr. Florida, and he was known. He had a TV show called the Walker's Cay Chronicles that, a friend of mine said we all used to get up on Saturday morning and wonder where Flip was going to take us. He did this great TV show for years, and he was a conservationist for sure. And but he understood how to educate people about the places that he would take us to. So he was a great person. And those are the kind of people that represent policies and legislation, and he can make people understand the things that they're looking at that they may not understand. So he was certainly the conservation movement is going to miss a person like that. But there are other people that are coming along that do the same thing. And I know fishing shows on TV aren't what they used to be, but they're still out there. And it's not necessarily fishing shows. There are all kinds of wildlife shows. And fortunately, they don't do many shooting shows anymore, which isn't real good. Uh, but they are out there, and work is being done, and it's a pretty impressive to run across these people to go to their lectures and have them talk about how their lives are intertwined with the ecology and conservation. So, and then my last piece. Let me switch over here. Is the is a thing called watching crab, and you can read it. It says you can observe a lot just by watching, which is a famous Yogi Berra quote. And I just couldn't resist. It's like another example of an offshoot of where I go when I'm painting, and these things just come to me. So I don't know how they get there, but they do. And then I keep a notebook of these ideas, and whenever I run out of stuff, I go directly to there, and I'm able to come up with stuff like this. But I did a whole series of crabs. I think that if I remember correctly, that was the only one that had text in them. But this is how you use something that's very, very unusual to make a point. The text on something like that can be changed to anything, promoting conservation, promoting the environment, promoting legislative policies, all sorts of stuff. So, uh, and also the I think it's important that the art here, not necessarily the crab, but a landscape or something like that over time uh, shows that this was the way it used to look. And then another photograph or something of the same exact place as this is how it looks now. And, you can see, well, there's a development there, or there's a factory, or, the trees are gone or whatever. And I think that's probably one of the things that you'll see mostly, like in the early national park photos and the paintings, and Ansel Adams and all those people that they did. They took those original photographs and did those original paintings, and now you can see. And sometimes it was just like not necessarily the picture in the foreground, but what was in the background. So, oh, that mountain had snow on it, or that river had ice on it. Now it doesn't have ice anymore. Things like that. So
Yeah.
those are the things that art can do. So yes. Oh, I thought you had a question, Brenda.
Oh, no, just one thing that I'm just, toggling back and forth between your different styles and your different subject matter. How does locale, where you're painting, affect, your artwork?
Yeah, good one. I was in the Keys forever, and Gene and I were managing different fishing lodges at one point in our lives, and until we owned our own, and but each of those places really has a different set of colors that go with it, like the palette that you use. And from one island in the Caribbean to another, there's not that much difference. Maybe if you're in Jamaica, they're using the colors of the flag and everything, so those kind of things appear in the landscape. But when I moved, I grew up in St. Augustine, so when I moved back from the Keys up to St. Augustine, where I am now, I was struck by the colors and how the greens were all muted. The water's a different color. The sky's a different color because the water reflects the colors of the sky. In the Bahamas and in those islands like that, when you look out over a landscape or a seascape, the color of the water, like if you're standing on a flat, the the sky will reflect those turquoise colors. But then if that flat drops off into deeper water, then the sky color changes and it becomes darker, like almost purple. So that's an extreme example here. But so when I moved back up here, those first paintings that you saw were using those gold colors of the Spartina grass and the colors that they change during the year when they go to seed, and then the sky color is different because it's reflecting the water. So I had to change my thinking. I wasn't real happy about it because I really liked the colors that I was working with, and so it was an interesting change, and I was just struck by how totally different it was.
Hmm.
Another artist friend of mine who did the same thing, he lived in the Keys and he moved up here, and his paintings sold for thousands and thousands of dollars. Uh, and when he moved up here, he lost his whole palette, and
Hmm.
I don't even know if he's painting anymore. And I mean, it was a shock, and we talked about, what do you do? How do you deal with that? And unfortunately, I've been
Interesting.
able to keep working, and I don't think he's painted a painting since, maybe his first
Hmm.
year he tried to do something. So,
Interesting.
questions?
There was a question
Anybody?
yeah, in the chat there was a question. How
Oh,
does the natural environment
All
influence
right.
influence your ceramics?
I'm sorry.
How does the natural environment influence your ceramics, your work with ceramics?
Oh, ceramics. Yeah. In I I was in college. I decided I was going to be a potter because my friends that I grew up with in Key West were all older than I was, and they were doing all these art shows and everywhere. And I realized that the paintings weren't selling, but the ceramics were. And so I said, "All right, I'll be a potter." And so I did that for years and years. And when I moved to Key West, I actually built a studio there, and there was the supplies there were no ceramic supplies and clay in the Keys, so I had to bring everything in. Uh, but I had that studio for a long time, and then when I started traveling, obviously I couldn't do ceramics, so I started working on my painting, and that's how I kind of got started in that whole thing. But I still have a few pieces, and I've threatened to use a local studio here. But I went from the utilitarian things, which is when you're first starting out in ceramics, it's kind of like what you do, the basic stuff. And I worked with this guy in North Georgia called Charles Counts, and his school was up in the mountains in northwest Georgia. And when you went there to start off, he said, "All right, we're going to learn how to throw bowls." I said, "Okay." He said, "You need to throw 300 bowls that are exactly the same size." I'm going, "What?" And so you're with a set of calipers, just making sure that these 300 bowls. And when you got done with 300 bowls, then you went to 300 plates and 300 pitchers, and on and on and on. And so at that point you got so good at the potter's wheel that you could throw anything. And I think pretty much to this day, it's been years since I've sat at a potter's wheel that I could sit down and throw a bowl almost exactly that same size without any problem at all. So but the school that I went to at the University of South Florida they were was the kind of school they didn't say this is how you paint a tree. They said think about painting this tree in 50 different ways. And so they were all about exploration and understand how you get from point A to point B and something like that. So I ended up uh, doing things like I did a series of ceramic manhole covers, which seems kind of weird, but in fact, I still look at there's a website called Manhole Covers around the world. That probably nobody but me and a couple of other people have ever seen. But anyway, what I did was, and goes into ceramic sculpture. So I'd had enough of 300 bowls, and I decided to work in ceramic sculpture. So what I did was I made a mold for the manhole covers, and then I would create these images and things, sculptural images on the mold, out of the mold that I made. And but what I did was I didn't fire them, and they were just raw clay with I painted them rather than glaze. So I started putting them out so they were exposed to the weather, and so the the point of was create a a sculptural form that would degrade over time because of the weather. So I started recording. I took pictures of this manhole cover as it degraded and over with rainstorms and everything until there was nothing else left but more green grass. And so that's kind of where I was at the time with ceramic sculpture. And I used bricks and all sorts of things that I made and some that I found from different companies and things. So that was the most challenging thing for me and the most fun for me. And I mean, I really was tired of the 300 bowl things, uh, but I can still, I made a lot of ceramic pieces that were jars and covered jars and vases and things like that, even though I was still doing the ceramic sculpture. And I still have a few pieces around the house here that somehow or another have managed to survive living all over the place. So thanks to my mother for that, for saving them in there on my family garage. So.
Awesome.
Anything
Any
else?
other questions?
All right.
Oh
Um,
Oh,
goodness,
wait,
here's a good
here's
one.
one.
Brenda, go ahead.
What stories do you have on Allison?
I think there's a statute of limitations on that. Everybody in the Keys at that time was involved in smuggling in some way or another. I mean, it's like yeah, except Allison. And it was like I don't think you were allowed to be a city commissioner unless you had some sort of smuggling thing going on at the time. So it was interesting living in the Keys at that time because of that, and playing in Jimmy's band and the whole thing. I'm doing a thing next month, talking to a group of people about their early years in Key West and how much fun it was, uh, and one of my favorite things. What's I see all the time. What's your favorite Jimmy Buffett line, song line? And mine is the perfect description of what it was like living in the Keys at the time. The line is, "If I don't die by Thursday, I'll be roaring Friday night." And that was really kind of what it was like. Is every night people were out and around, and in the summertime in the Keys there was nobody there. I mean, it was literally deserted. So there were 4 or 5 bars that you could go to. Uh, um, uh, it was just a special time to be there. And yeah, I'm playing music. At the time was playing at a place called Lou's Bar. And so I was doing that in the nighttime and I had my ceramic studio at that time in the Keys. So I was playing music at night and fishing and doing ceramics in the daytime. So it was an interesting time to be there, certainly, and it was a great time to be in the Keys with all those other writers and actors and musicians, and it was a special time. Thankfully, I was there. It was like when the artists and people in the 30s and 40s were gathered in Paris, and all the writers and painters and everybody would get together in these cafes and I'm sure the bars. That was like a special time in history. And I think being there in the Keys during the 60s and 70s was exactly that same thing.
That's neat. A few more questions and then we'll break. But the first one is how long would it take to paint some
I'm sorry to paint. I'm sorry, I missed the last half of that.
Something
so
like Lucky
sorry.
Boy.
Yes, thank you.
You were talking over each other. Paint.
How long does it take to paint something like Lucky Boy?
I probably have a, a, at least a week of drawing, and then the painting is probably another, I'm going to say 3 weeks or 4. Obviously, it's a big painting. It's 36 by 48. And so I would say, a month to do something like that. And every day is different. You have life goes on, and sometimes I get to paint for 2 hours, and other days I get to paint for 6 hours. Yesterday was a big day for me. I spent almost all day in the studio. I didn't have to go anywhere or do anything. And so, and then you can see the studio behind me. There's all sorts of stuff hanging. Some of it's completed, some of it's not. And I'll work on something. Maybe I'll work on two paintings at the same time. For I'm waiting for oil paints. Of course, they have to dry, and acrylics they dry almost instantly, so you can go back over and um, uh, you can paint much faster if it's acrylic painting. The bright colors, the old bright series thing, like the hog snapper that we saw earlier, that's done in acrylics. So I can paint pretty fast on those. They don't take as long. But an oil painting is a different story. Um, I did a I did a painting for a guy up north, and he wanted a picture of a tarpon jumping out of the water, a real close up of a tarpon jumping out of the water, and it was an oil painting. So I was working on the painting. He kept bugging me. Where's my painting? When am I going to have my painting? So I said, all right, I'm done with it, but you can't have it yet because you got to ship it and the paint's wet. He said, well, how long is it going to be? And I said, all right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. So I took the palette and I used paper plates for my palette, and I mixed my colors in a certain rotation every single time, with black and white being in the middle. So then I labeled the colors and all that sort of stuff. So so I took the palette that had wet paint on it. I punched a hole in the middle and bought one of those clocks from the hobby store, right? So you can make a clock out of anything, right? So I made a clock out of the palette and made sure the arms didn't touch any of the paint or anything. I put it in a plastic bag, and I sent him a note and says, when the paint is dry on this palette, on this clock, I'll send your painting. And I think he was prouder of the clock than he was, I think, the painting. So, but anyway, I've done that a couple of other times. But it just takes time to do these things, and the oil paintings, are even longer. So not only do you have the painting time, but you have the drying time involved in that. So.
And then one last question, other than the washboard, what
I'm
instruments do
sorry,
you play?
I missed it again.
Other than the washboard, what other instruments do you play?
Oh, well, I play a little mandolin, ukulele, and tenor banjo. And I mess around on the guitar, but not so much anymore. Um, and I just started playing. I bought a set of Congo drums. I think you can see them behind me there. uh, I when I'm waiting for paint to dry, I'll have the music on and I'll get there and bang around on those things. It keeps it let me pass the time with something productive, and I just it gets you in here. Sometimes sitting and standing for such a long time, it's nice to get up and do something like that.
Hmm.
So, but I there's a Jimmy Buffett tribute band. And they call me every once in a while when they have a concert somewhere. And I think the next one I have is at the Guy Harvey Resort. They're doing some kind of project there, so they called me and asked me if I wanted to come and play. And I said absolutely. And so it's fun to go do those things. So that's enough to keep me so that I still keep messing around with my instruments, and I have a wall here with 1, 2, 7 different instruments on the wall, and so I get to play around with those, and so I enjoy my studio a lot. Really the the man cave slash playground and work studio.
That is wonderful. Well, Vaughn, thank you so much. We have filled our time with so much
That was great.
knowledge, so many wonderful things
I'm
about your
sorry, I
work.
think I'm missing.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I'm missing a lot of the conversation.
Uh-oh.
I think our internet's buffering too much.
Yeah, I think my internet's buffering out here.
Okay.
And that's why I'm missing some.
Uh-oh. Well, we are grateful to you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing with us today about your art and your life. So many stories.
It was
Um,
fantastic.
yes, we appreciate it so much. And members
Well,
will have this
you're
available
quite
so you
welcome.
can
Thank
share
you
it.
for inviting
Absolutely. Glad to have you. And everybody go eat at Black Fly.
me. Yes.
And we have this recorded, Vaughn. So if you want to share, just let us know. We have it recorded.
Thank you. I'd love to pass it along.
Great.
Great. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vaughn.